You're listening to the Bearded Theologians podcast, hosted by Zach Bechtold and Matt Franks. If you'd like to learn more about the Bearded Theologians, you can go online at beardedtheologians.com, where we have past podcasts, blogs, and a couple items for sale. So check us out, beardedtheologians.com. Thank you for listening, and enjoy this week's show. You're listening to the Bearded Theologians podcast, hosted by Matt Franks
and Zach Bechtold.
This week on the podcast, we're going to talk about how we've handled the 4th of July in worship, because that tends to be one of those conversations and questions that comes up from time to time for pastors. And so Zach and I will probably just share from our experiences and maybe have some color commentary and all sorts of things. So Zach, how do you handle the 4th of July in worship for your church?
Well, it's an interesting holiday because it's one that we celebrate. And celebrate, big as a country. I don't know that we, maybe this is part of my commentary. I don't know that we celebrate for the same reasons we did maybe 50, 100 years ago. Yeah. Now it's a big birthday. It's a big birthday party, essentially. It's a big weekend to blow stuff up and make sure you're cooking on the grill and doing all the things we do with family and friends. And it can also be a good time for community. We do 4th of July for 2 days here in Choteau, and brings a lot of people in, brings a lot of family home. And so, there's good things certainly about it. But when it comes to worship, in planning worship, I have been in churches in the past where the 4th of July Sunday very much overshadowed anything the church was doing, overshadows the gospel, overshadows Jesus, very literally. I served a church long ago who, if there was a flat surface in the sanctuary, it had an American flag on it. And they went as far as to drape a 20 by 30, whatever the dimensions, a very large flag in the choir loft over the stained glass Jesus. And for me, there's just something about that's not good. My church is now, a couple of them, we have the flag up on the chancel area. That's fine. That doesn't grind my gears. That doesn't bother me. I get that. But when you go to draping flags over Jesus, over stained glass, over things like that, I think it becomes the point where this is more important than why we're here, which Jesus being why we're here. And I start having a problem with it then when the holiday overshadows the gospel. And so we have to be careful when we're planning. We have to be careful when we're doing things to not move out of why we're there, worshiping God, and replacing it with idols, replacing it with symbols, and replacing our worship for that day with anything but God. And there's a fine line in that. I think it's a good way to. I think there's good ways to acknowledge the holiday. There's good ways to acknowledge patriotism, and there are very bad and unhealthy ways that we do that. And I think we have to be self-aware of that.
So understand when I say what I'm about to say, understand 37 years of resentment towards this holiday.
Yes.
It is my birthday, and I have to admit, I do not like it. Not in the anti-American sentiment. Yeah. It's like those people that have Christmas on their birthday.
100%.
So understand, no, I do not have a whole American flag house. I do not expect to have tons of fireworks for me. I'm not that individualistic. I actually, because it was the other day, I literally laid on the couch and then went and watched Spider-Man, and then set my neighborhood as it seemed like a war zone with all the fireworks that were going off legally and illegally, and causing some kind of scares for my children. And so for the holiday in worship,
I've always struggled with this, not because of those reasons. I've struggled with it because one, it does bring some of those conversations and divides that can miss out on opportunities to talk about what it means to be a follower of Jesus and a member of society. And you can have some really good conversations, and I think those need to be in one of those sit down things where you're like all together and like, this is why you're here. I don't think this is a time you do it in worship, because worship is worship. It's something we do to honor God. And it's not those times when we just like, we're going to debate this issue right here, right now, because it seems to happen in those places. I've been fortunate enough that I've been in pretty cool places that have not necessarily played this time up, because I don't know about you and your context, but I know for me, it seems like no matter when the 4th of July is, it's like a 4-day holiday, no matter where it is in the week. And, every so many years I'm fortunate enough to, if I'm in town, I've preached on it a couple of times. And, I've been blessed. I've had congregations really love me and support me because it's my birthday. And so in regards to music and stuff, we stick to the hymnal. I've been real firm on that because I think that's something, I think that kind of provides a good medium way, because there's some good stuff in the hymnal that you can play.
Yeah.
And you can play it as a prelude. Like last week we played, because that was something our worship design team struggled with. We didn't know when we wanted to celebrate it, because it fell on, like, it's on a Thursday. So does that mean that you started on Sunday, or do you mean that it started on this, and I erred on the side of, let's do it beforehand, because it's Holy Communion Sunday for us on Sunday, this coming Sunday. And so we had some preludes and postludes that were very patriotic, and they were really well done, and it was really nice. And the Sunday in worship, it's Communion Sunday, so there's not much room to, within the liturgy to squeeze anything extra in. We may play like a Skit Guys video or something just to kind of, have some kind of filler, but we didn't really plan anything out because we were kind of stuck on when to really do it. Sure. But like I said, I've been really blessed that we've had congregations that have respected being an American, but also being a follower of Jesus first. And that was something that was taught to me when I was first being a Christian, is that you're follower of Jesus first, then American. And that kind of blew my mind a little bit.
Sure.
And so, and then we talk about my whole, my Native American family side and how do we handle that? It's interesting. And, you could dissect that and look at that all you want to, but in reality is we try to honor it, but we don't make it the center focus of worship. And that's been we do that with all of our holidays that are not necessarily holy days, but just those holidays, you're kind of, you need to do a little bit of something. And so we do a little bit of something. It's not, and I've been blessed. That's where it's been everywhere. And yeah, I'm pretty sure we have an American flag in the sanctuary, but it's not on stage. So,
Well, and I think that's the thing is how, maybe that's the question we're trying to answer as pastors, as churches, as whatever, is how do we honor heritage, I guess? How do we honor these things that go on in our country and celebrate there? How do we honor them in our spaces of worship, but not let those be the focus of worship? In patriotic holidays, just they seem to stick out the most, maybe, or maybe they're the others, right? That aren't Christian holidays, right? That we go ahead and celebrate in worship, but they get in there, and we need to honor those folks. We need to honor these things, but how do we not make them the focus when they don't need to be the focus?
And I think that's where having a good, strong foundation of your image of God comes into play, especially in your regards to your image of God of worship. If you're striving to have multiple voices and providing space for people to feel comfortable, that means that you do provide space for multiple voices, and whether you agree or disagree with them. And so that means I would rather compromise and have certain things go on in worship that are healthy than trying to deal with things that really, in my mind, don't matter, when I know that there are people to start. I mean, I could go down that list of things that are definitely things we really should be having conversation about. And, for me, like I said, it's all dependent on what you are trying to design for what you're saying your worship is speaking of. Are you honoring God, or are you honoring other things? And I think when you start to look at that and you really kind of you focus on that, I think it opens your mind in a different way. But I also think that it can, I think if you have people that are wanting to have honest conversation about it, you put up a plate, you maybe do a Bible study on that, or maybe you provide a space for that conversation to happen, and you don't just quote what it says in the book of discipline and the book of worship, and you don't you teach them the why you feel the way that you do, and have space for them to share and to have that conversation. Because in order for us to genuinely have that conversation, for us to grow, not only as just as people, I think that we need to start providing more space for that and stop making it just a sense of a statement or a tweet or something, and really doing the work that we need to do to bridge some of those differences and say, hey, maybe they come to a compromise and say, maybe that's not so important, and that maybe
well, and maybe that's the problem we've had with the pulpit for the last forever, right? Is we've made less space for conversation and more space for, I'm going to say this from here, and not give any room to have a conversation about it. Whether, no matter what topic it is, maybe it's a hot button issue, maybe it's patriotism, maybe it is just your own agenda. It's way too easy for pastors to get in the pulpit, make statements, and then never come out of the pulpit and talk about them there. Where in reality, most of the things that we say that are political or edgy or this or that need to have conversations that surround them before and after we say them.
Yes.
But too many preachers hide behind their pulpit, say the things they say, and then never speak to them ever again. And there's not, that's a matter of some accountability. That's a matter of some authenticity. But if you're going to get up in the pulpit and say anything, you better be willing and able to come out of the pulpit and answer questions, to create space for people to understand, for people to disagree with you. And if you're afraid to do that, maybe you should rethink saying those things if you're not willing to have the conversation.
Well, and I think that that's a healthy way to phrase that out. Maybe instead of finding yourself in that time, the calendar doesn't change. And so maybe teach it as a Bible study series for a couple of weeks on the holy days versus the holy days, holidays versus the holy days. Hashtag I'm taking that if somebody steals it from me, I will come after you. And so, I think that the whole conversation, I think, is important and vital for our congregations, because we refuse to have those conversations.
Yep.
And yes, you should provide some space, but don't make it the central focus of worship.
Right.
And I think that that's where that theology of worship comes into play, and we need to be working on that and teaching on that. Why do you come to worship? We definitely have done a really bad job of sharing the why.
Yeah. And the same can be said for Mother's Day is another big one that we do this on, right?
Well, and we talked about that. Yeah. We talked about Mother's Day and Father's Day. Our Father's Day one was actually shorter than our Mother's Day.
It was. Yeah. That's a typical trend. But that's the thing. This isn't the only holiday we do this on. And so not to pick on the 4th of July, but to pick on it a little bit. Right. But it's to call us to question of, let us be intentional about the way we worship, about why we worship, and how we can incorporate some of these things in a healthy way, that doesn't overshadow the gospel, that doesn't overshadow what worship really is, but adds an avenue for people to experience God in these ways.
Well, and I think that's a good thing to reflect about. And so we encourage you to do that this week. Maybe sit down with your worship teams and start small. Start with your worship teams and talk to them about that. Find ways to be able to do that. And so encourage you to do that. Check out our website at beardedtheologians.com. We've got all sorts of really cool things. Just added a new shirt to Zazzle that looks really cool. You might want to check that out. And so for the Bearded Theologians, I'm Matt Franks.
I'm Zach Bechtold. Thanks for checking us out.
We hope you've enjoyed the conversations that we've had today on the Bearded Theologians Beardcast, and we'd encourage you to continue those conversations online at beardedtheologians.com or on our Facebook page. We also hope that you pick up a couple of coffee mugs to satisfy your coffee mug collection. Have a good day.
Wah, wah, wah.